I did want to ask you, what are some things that you would have done differently in the beginning? Maybe with Hooky or even maybe with Marionetta. Like, are there things that you wish you would have done differently?
I mean, I'm thinking about Marionetta because with Hooky, I have one thing I know I thought I would have done differently, but I'm thinking also about Marionetta. No, I'm happy with Marionetta. So,
Okay.
yeah, because it's also because it's my current story, so it feels like I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with it. So with Hooky, um, there's only one thing, and it's the fact that maybe at the beginning, I was so worried about the comments of people,
Mhm.
so it affected my story a little bit. Because when you publish on Webtoon, you get a lot of comments, like a lot, and there's a lot of opinions. And also,
Yeah.
since it's a work in progress, people tend to leave the comment based on the current episode. Of course, it makes sense.
Mhm.
So they hated Nico and Monica, two of the
Aw.
main characters. They were so mean to Dorian, and my intent with these characters was to uh, have them being mean, and
Mhm.
then have a character arc, and slowly becoming friends with Dorian and being nicer and becoming better people, and yeah, a character arc. But I got stressed about people hating on them too much, so I accelerated their arc, and
Mhm.
they became nicer
Yeah.
sooner than I expected, than I planned. So that was a learning experience also, because nowadays I try to not be influenced at all by the comments. Um, yeah, and I think that's important because um, it's similar as I told you before about having all the story right and before starting. Then sometimes the characters ask you different things. So with the commenters, it's even worse. Like if you have your story thought of and the comments affect your story, it
Mhm.
can be a mess in the end.
Yeah.
Like, so I have to keep my mind cool,
Yeah.
and and I try to stick to my original idea. Um, that doesn't mean that I don't listen to reviews or critics. Sometimes I read opinions that I think like, oh, this person is right. Maybe mm, I didn't explain this correctly, or this the meaning of this scene can be read as something that I didn't intend to. Consider these critics like as things I can better in the future, but not like not.
I mean, it's hard
I mean,
to like
yes, yes.
when you have when you put your work out into the world and
Mm,
people are free to comment on it or give their opinions, like it's hard when you attract so many different opinions and people can be really negative about it too, like they
yeah.
can be very critical. um so like
I feel like having so many people hating on you on webtoons, it's not that common, because people who go to webtoon to read to take the time to read your story will usually appreciate your story and your art. So
yeah.
maybe you have, I mean, when it's a hater, a troll, it's so stupid. I just laugh, like it's it's silly. You can see when someone is just hating and it's just stupid. You can choose your path.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
my case, it's difficult because sometimes I read reviews about my webtoon that I'm like, oh, this person and I just don't click. But sometimes I read others that are like, this person is right. You can, I don't know, there's critics that are fair and they work with you, like they help you learn, and others that it just that, like, for example, if someone critiqued my stories because they don't like that they're like very character focused, and it's like it doesn't have action, or it has too much romance and everything. I will like, well, it's your taste, it's your opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good point. So
Oh.
so our last question before we get into our fan submitted questions, what advice would you give somebody who wants to create a webcomic?
Ooh, okay. Advice. Prepare to work a lot. um I don't know. I feel like during the interview, I told you basically the things that are important to me. Like, choose an art style that you can do fast, and you can, well, that you can keep the deadlines on time. Like,
Mhm.
to try to be too perfectionist, to draw too many details if you know that it will take so much time for you to finish. So choose an art style that works, and a coloring style that it's not that difficult. Um, because we're focusing on Webtoon here, okay?
Yeah.
So I think the most challenging thing on Webtoon is the deadlines, at
Mhm.
least for me. Then having everything written before starting to actually draw the story is very helpful, because when you start publishing, you will not have time to stop and think. I think that it's very important also to draw a story that you enjoy drawing and writing, because so many times I see people that are like, "Oh, what story do you prefer to read? This one or this one? What kind of things do people like more?" I see this in forums or on Reddit or places like that, where people like look for tips. And I think that the most important thing is that you're having fun with your
Yeah.
story, and it's that you wanna tell people a story you wanna tell. So yeah, I think, yeah, these three
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would like you if somebody doesn't enjoy their story, like then what's the point of
Yeah.
creating it?
But some people want to please the audience because they think they will have like more success like this. And I think that that doesn't work. But because drawing a comic, it's so much work, so you have to enjoy it while you're doing it. So yeah.
I think as webcomic creators, like especially us independent ones, like it's hard to like you want people to enjoy your story, but at
Yeah.
the same time, like you can't just create a story based around what you think other people will like because
Yeah.
then like at some point you'll just be less motivated to create it, um, especially if
Yeah.
it's not received well.
Yeah.
Like if you plan, oh, I'm gonna include all these tropes and characters that I think people will like, then like what's the point of doing
Yeah.
that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think a huge thing that other creators tell me all the time when I ask them this question is they're like, just do it. Just start making it.
Yeah, that's so important. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the most important of them. Yeah, just do it. Yeah.
To anybody listening who is thinking of creating a webcomic, like you're not going to learn unless you just start doing it. So take time, figure out your story. You don't have to have every single story beat figured out, but have the beginning and the ending and maybe like those major arcs
Mm,
figured out
mm,
and then just start doing it. And you can learn a lot by, you know, reading other webcomics. There's plenty of resources online to like how to be a good storyteller and like pacing. Like there's a lot of resources online, but I think the big thing is you won't learn unless you just start doing it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you can learn a lot, like reading and studying, but actually making a comic is the biggest learning experience of them all.